Hey yo, it's Guido coming at you with a tank review of an old tank. What is going on here? I've got a T-54. Somebody mentioned on the channel, on the YouTube channel, that they were struggling a bit. They were grinding through the T-54 line and were looking for some advice and wondered if I'd do a review. And I said, you know what? I might as well. This is a tank I haven't played a whole lot lately, although I have quite a few games in it. Interesting tank. Been around for a long time. I believe it was the original Tier 9 medium tank, as in the original top of the tier for the Russians. You can see mine is sitting here, only one marked, getting close to the 2 mark, but it's one of the first Tier 9 medium tanks I ever had. It's a bit, like I said, it's been a long time since I played it. We'll do this standard. We'll look at an overview, look at the tech tree, 3D model, a comparison amongst its peers, my stats, and some recent stats. I went ahead and played about 25 battles. Got to get a feel for it in this meta. My setup, and then examples of gameplay. I've got 3 games for you to take a look at. You can see I've got a pretty good crew in there. As far as the overview, it's the standard hover medium for the Soviets. Very angled, armor on the front and the lower plate. Lower plate is actually fairly large. Rounded turret, very difficult to pen this turret, especially from this angle right here, unless you really get into the flat bit right on either side of the mantlet there. A bit easier from the side, but still, because of the rounded nature of it, you start to get those auto bounce or weird bounce angles, or just the armor is made thicker because of the angle, and you simply can't penetrate. Decent side to shoot at right there, but again, it's the hover medium, so it's very low. No armor to speak of on the back. Tracks are decently wide, can eat heat and HE, but if you look at other tanks, let's see, look at the prototype. It's just pretty much massive compared to the T-54. And the UD's roughly the same. Low profile on the UD's. T-54 is gigantic in there. You look at the 430, which actually I think is a little bit lower profile. Isn't that interesting? I did not realize that. But they're more or less the same tank. I think the 430's armor is a little more useful in the current meta and the way it's laid out. T-54 has suffered a little bit of power creep, although it's been messed with a bit along the way. Skoda, pretty large. Not really known for its armor, obviously. Standard B, roughly the same size. That surprised me a bit. I thought the Standard B was a lot larger than the T-54. I think really what it is the T-54 is larger than you might think, and then the WZ-120, which is more or less the same chassis with just the Chinese version with the big gun on it right there. So what are you looking at? Yeah, angled armor. This can be difficult to penetrate based on the extra thickness from the angling, unless you start to flat plate, i.e. you're looking down, or if you're below it, looking up at the lower plate, and a very bouncy, rounded turret right there. This is actually a prototype that was done in '44, and they did construct 713 vehicles, so this is a no-kidding real-world tank that was out there in quite a large number. But it's interesting that it was designed in '44, the first prototype constructed, and is a good example of how far tank design came through World War II. If you think about the tanks that started, then the designs as they went through, some of the late model production tanks that came out like the IS-3, and then in '44, as the war is ending, we've got a prototype of this bad boy coming out, which saw service for a long time, and is more or less the basis for the rest of the Soviet tanks all the way to the modern day. Just the design, the rounded turret, the low slung nature of it, that kind of thing. All right, let's move on from that. We'll take a look at the tech tree considerations for the T-54. The T-54 line comes through the 3485. I won't go further south on the tiers than that at tier 6. And you can see that it's got 5 crew members. Once you get to the T-43, it's a standard loadout crew-wise all the way through the T-62. But the T-3485 through the T-54 line does have a few places where you can branch off. At the T-44, you can go to the 430 or the T-54. So it's a great line for those 2 lines. Then you get up to the 430U for the Tier 10, and through the T-54 to the T-62 Tier 10, which also breaks off to the Object 140. So the T-44 is really the gateway to all of your N-tier Russian medium tanks right there. You've got to go through that one medium to get there. Except for the K91, I guess. The rear turreted stuff is over here on the A43, A44 line right there. So the crew loadout is pretty standard once you get past the 3485 and you drop a crew member off. I believe the radio operator, they always lose out at the end. But if we take a look at this, then I wanted to show you this because it's kind of interesting. This tank has 2 viable guns. They really are. Now the stock one and the 100 LB are okay. I'm not going to talk too much about stock configuration. Nobody is playing this tank to play it stock. you're just going to have to suffer through all of that and do the best you can, really. My advice on that is to free XP as much of this as you can to get one of these two guns, realizing that depending on which one of these two you want to go to, the 140 or the 62A is probably the one you're going to unlock first. I think you're going to end up unlocking both because you probably want both those N-tier tanks. Just pick one. They're more or less the same. We'll talk about the differences on the guns a little while later. One's giving you more DPM for a little bit less standard pen and accuracy. The other one's giving you less DPM for more accuracy and a little more standard pen. So it's a slight trade-off, and I'll tell you which one I'm using when we get there. Other than that, pretty standard as far as unlocking the modules and things that you need. Let's move on to the 3D model. Looking at the 3D model, you can see it's a pretty standard hover medium right here. Straight on, pretty good armor. Lower plate's at 201. Depends on how angled you are. It gets less, obviously, as you look up. Upper plate can get quite a bit, especially if you've got some look-up angle at it at all. But then you're able to pen the lower plate much easier. But it's the turret, really, where this thing starts to shine. It does have 2 weak spots on these hatches, but they're very small, very narrow targets, not easy to hit at all. As we zoom in, you can see that there's not much going on. Even the side, once you get a little angle, once you start to flat plate it, it's better. But if you get any kind of weird bounce or angle from the shot, then you are going to have trouble penetrating. Still, it's fairly thick and immune to most of the tier 7 guns without some gold, unless they're no kidding just blapping straight into it right there. You get any kind of angle and you get that auto bounce off the front. You really want to try to avoid shooting these things at an angle like that on the front. You need to reach over here and try to hit them in the side. Once they over angle, that nice flat side doesn't have a whole lot of armor, and it's pretty easy to pin right there. So not much other to say on that. If you're familiar with one hover medium's armor layout, you're familiar with most, minus some of the ones that have weird angles and a couple pike nose, things like that. Let's move on to the next. On the comparison, one thing to realize about the T-54 is it actually has the lowest alpha gun in the class at 320. If it's not the lowest, it's tied. I don't have every tier 9 up here, but it's at least tied for the lowest alpha in the class, which ranges from 440 on the WZ to 390 is kind of the standard for most of them. There's a 360 in there on the standard being the Type 61. So that does give it a little bit less knockout power at the end when you're trying to take down that low hit point high tier tank, and it does suffer a little bit from that. You get a couple low rolls and you're really hurting. But the gun I've got it on is the higher pen, higher accuracy gun, lower DPM. So 219 standard pen. The thing about this tank's gun, and it's called the T-54 because the heat round is ridiculous. It is 330 pen heat round, going from 212 to 330, and the other gun I believe 209 or something like that to 330. They both have the same heat round at the end of the day. So the rate of fire with the gun I've got on it is 7.63. I like the accuracy better at 0.32 and the aim time at 1.92 for that gun, which brings it top in the class. The gun with more DPM will take it from 2300 to 2700, but you lose a lot of accuracy. I believe it's 0.34 or so, and the aim time gets above 2 at that point. So I just like the more accurate, higher pen gun, and I will accept a little bit less DPM because this thing just really isn't the DPM machine. It's more about its armor and mobility and the ability to put these shots in where it needs it, vice just plain old machine gunning people down. But still, the rate of fire is decent. Not amazing, but decent. Reload time is okay as well. Put some food, put your rammer, use your directives. You can get this down to very comfortable, about 6 seconds or so, and some change. The turret traverse is or the gun traverse, turret traverse is really nice because it will get the gun online, and it does a very good job dealing with people trying to circle you or coming from different directions. So the gun will just snap over in the direction you want it to go. It's fairly accurate as far as the dispersion and aim time. So in that respect, it is a good close-in brawler. What it is not good at is depression, and you will find yourself fighting the terrain a lot. -5 is really, really painful. Not as bad as the WZ at -3, but -5 is unusable in a lot of places. Just little minor things like some rubble or a little bump in the road may lift your gun up above where you want it to be. So you're going to have to be very careful when you maneuver with this thing, and the places you pick to fight specifically, especially if it's hilly terrain, you've got to be careful about how you use it. I'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the gameplay. Coming down here, again, there's the DPM, kind of low. 2700 gets a lot better with the other gun. It's really to taste on the two guns. I think there's probably some people who will go with one or the other for lots of different reasons. I just happen to go with the lower DPM that's more accurate. Hit points are on the low side at 1650, not great. Whole armor and turret armor. This is where this thing really starts to shine at 240 on the turret armor, as long as you can keep the hole hidden. But even so, the 120 is not bad. 120 is not bad as long as you don't flat plate it too much and you can keep those angles going. You will get some troll bounces from this thing at times. I'm sure you've had that issue shooting at T-54s. They do a little wiggle and all of a sudden you're bouncing off what is a relatively thin armor profile, but it's got lots of angles, so it is usable. But that turret armor is really nice for poking out and going hold down. Of course, anyone who's dabbing 2 and getting up into the 300s, and as long as they don't get an auto bounce angle on your weird rounded turret, they're probably going to butter through your turret as well. So don't believe it is invulnerable. So close to the Centurion 7.1, but not quite there. Mobility is pretty good on this tank. Specific power at 19.8. That's near the top, although some of these others in the 20s are a bit nicer. It will get up to speed to 56, which is not top of the class, but zippy enough to get around. I will talk about that as well when we get into the replays showing its ability to get around and flex on the battlefield. Get down here to concealment. It's quite stealthy, not at the top of the class, but near the top at 15, being low profile. And 390 on the view range is actually pretty good. Not quite Centurion 7.1 nice at 410. Holy cow, that's really good. But 390 will keep you in the ball game. Put some optics on it, get your crew trained up for the vision stuff, and you should be doing pretty well in the vision game, even in the T-54 Tier 9 medium tank. So what do you have here, really? What you have is a really good all-around tank with a troll armor layout. And that pretty much encapsulates all of the Russian hover mediums. For the most part, they really have that troll armor layout based on the mechanics of the game, the way the math is done, the way the game is played, the way the maps are set up. Really, everything is set up to give this tank pretty much an advantage in the way the game is played. The only thing it suffers in is depression on ridges. So as long as you can work through that, it has pretty much everything else you want in a medium in this game. It's got the vision, it's got the mobility, it's got the gun accuracy, it's got the penetration when you hit 2 and get that ridiculous 330 heat, and then it's got the armor, the ability to go hold down with the troll turret, and then just the crazy bounces you'll get off the angle. So it really is an all-rounder, and that's interesting to say because most all-rounders are crappy, but they're kind of misapplied. You'll hear it, I don't have the patent on here, but you'll hear it as an all-rounder. Well, sort of, but it doesn't have all the strengths also that the T-54 has. So in the game of World of Tanks, the way it's played, the way the meta is, the T-54 is actually the all-rounder tank. All right, let's go from the comparison to my stats. All right, we will start with here my overall stats, and then we'll go to what my session has been the last 25 or so battles. There it is, 447 battles, so I played it quite a bit. 919 on the average XP, which is pretty good once it approaches 1,000. I'd much rather it be above 1,000, but remember, this is one of my first Tier 9 tanks, so back when I was just pretty bad at the game. Managed to claw my way up to 55% from what was probably a 49, 48% tank for quite a long time, probably hundreds of battles. So these stats are a little bit lower than what I think I can do right now, and I'll show you what my last session was here in just a minute. But overall, 1.28 on the damage, 1.85 on the destruction, 55% win rate right there. 0.44 armor use, so that is approaching usability, right? 1.0 is, hey, it's got armor. 0.5 or so is usable armor in the right situation. Anything really at 0.2 or lower is no armor. You're just getting lucky bounces. Talked about the experience. My average DPM is bad at 1839 over these 447. That should really be in the 2100, 2400 region. But again, my excuse, of course, is that it was one of my first Tier 9s. Damage is pretty high. Assist is decent at 834. Spotted is high, so you can see my formerly very aggressive gameplay style showing up right there, and a 1.3 on the vehicles destroyed. But let's go ahead and jump into the Hall of Fame, and we'll take a look at what I've done for the last 25 battles. Of course, just as I do that, the Hall of Fame is temporarily unavailable. So we will jump over here. My last 2 battles in this thing. We'll go by vehicles and click on the T-54. This is the new session stats, so we'll just go ahead and use this. In two battles, I am looking at 1.99 damage caused and received. That's better than it was. Enemy destroyed 3. That's pretty good. Average damage at 2775. Average assist a little lower at 522, or sorry, a little higher actually at 522. Damage blocked at 270. What I would have shown you if the that's amazing that the Hall of Fame went away. Let's try one more way to get into this. It's almost like a live event right here. Let's see, is it going to work? There we go. We've made it. We've made it happen. So I can show you instead of saying what it would show. Battles left 5. That means I've done 25. It takes 30 to put you in the Hall of Fame for that month. Those last 2 battles I just showed you would have brought me to 27. But in any event, I'd have 5,098 on the WTR, the World of Tanks rating, and that would have been good enough to put me where at 7th. So I'd have just bumped out Zarkangel and been number 7, 56%, 2,102 average damage, north of 1,000 on the experience. So that worked out for me. 1.6, which is this. Destroyed, so 1.6 is better, and then 591 blocked, and 897 on the assist. So doing a little bit better. I'd much rather see that in the 2,400 area. And it was that for a while, and I had a series of about 5 or 6 battles one evening that were absolutely atrocious, which really kind of crushed. I was sitting around number 2 and 3 for a while on this, provided I continued with that 230 battles, which clearly I am not at this point going to be able to do that, even if I have an amazing next 2 or 3 battles here. But there's my stats and how I've been doing it. Let's look at my setup. So I'm doing something a little bit different with this that I don't usually do, and I will, for the most part, tell people don't worry about optics, but I'm sort of leaning that way now. One of the big reasons on the T-54 is it does not have a vert stab as a gun laying drive, so you might as well put optics on instead of that. So I'm running vents, optics, and a rammer. I have a pretty good crew. It's a 2-skill crew working on their 3rd, so not amazing, but they're well spec'd for a medium, so that it's not a goofy crew. It's working out real nice right there. Large kits, large fire extinguisher. You could trade the large fire extinguisher for food. That would certainly help with all the numbers. And then I was running a rammer directive because I had extras laying around. They're all used up, as you can see. So I'll probably start putting vent purge on right now. Let me just do that while I'm thinking about it and use those bad boys up because I have some in the garage. I used to not worry too much about directive, but I will say if you have directives laying around in your garage, there's no reason to save them. Go ahead and put them on and use them if they give you some kind of bonus. Use them all up. A lot like personal reserve. No sense letting them lay around in the garage doing nothing. You might as well use them. That little extra percentage may be the thing you needed. And I will say that the vision and other bonuses like the vents and the other vision bonuses right here, the optics has really helped with the vision game on this thing. And there was a streak there in the first 10 battles where I was averaging about 1,500 assists, which was going really nicely. So I will recommend that you actually use optics on this tank. That is my setup. Oh, running 12 heat. You could probably, if you're going to try hard mode, you probably want more than that. And I may be running too many HE, but I never really had trouble running out of shots. I would run out of gold because dabbing too and trying to get through some of the heavy armored super heavies and stuff and TDs out there, you kind of need that. But I never really got to the point where I was running out of everything. I probably need to drop that down to 2 and put those onto AP or heat. HE out of this little gun doesn't do a whole bunch. And I am, just for the record, running the 100 D-54. The other one that is viable is the D-10-2S or T-2S. You can see that 219, it's 201. I think I said 209. 201 for its pen. Both have 330 heat pen, and you can see the difference in the rate of fire, and then there's the accuracy numbers as well. All right, that is my setup. Let's move on to some examples. So the first example will give a medium tank, kind of taking the critical terrain and anchoring it for the rest of the team and then bringing up the heavies. Malnovic is a good example of this. There's a lot of vision games to be played on this map as well. Decent accuracy on the gun. You can take shots like that just happened to miss. We're going to head up to the hill. Malnovic, like I said, you can play vision games. I do have the optics on this tank, but I'm going to go ahead and use the significant speed, the pretty good gun, and the troll armor to come up here to the critical terrain, try to grab it first, and drag along the rest of my tanks. So as I look back, lagging a little bit, it's the E100 I really need up there. But I've got a 103, I've got the E50. The 12T is doing something very important for me. He's going to get there first and let me know if a whole crowd and cloud of their lights and mediums have beaten us up there. If there's a bunch of them up there, then I'm probably not that interested. However, I do know that the Bulldog and the 1390 don't seem to be headed up that way. 1390 may have been, but he did get spotted by the cap. And then the T-40's kind of futzing around down low. So we are well ahead, and as the Bat Chat clears that front edge of their ramp, all we see now is heavies coming up. Sorry, a T-10 and a 430. Now the 430 is the corollary to this tank. So he is somebody I'm going to have to deal with and be careful about. But as I look back, I know that I've got the UDES, the E50, M, and the 103, and I'm counting on being able to put some shots into guys as they approach. Now he's hold down right there, so I'm going to have a hard time. I've switched to heat, and he keeps on trucking, so that's actually good. I'm hoping the E50 gets a light, or maybe makes him fire, and there's somebody to his right. So the T-10's now my priority. The T-10 fires. I don't have a shot. I'm just going to actually take down. There we go. So we get rid of his protection, and now he has to jam up against the stone wall there. Of course, the artillery's firing in. That's no surprise, but there's only one. 430 takes a hit, and now he's a 2 or 3 shot, depending on which one of us are shooting him. So I'm just going to come around. He squares up to me. That really helps me, so that gets me the ability to get a shot into him right there. And now I'm just working this corner. One of the strengths of a medium, any medium really, is that it can get shots. Come out here and take a quick shot in between the reload of the longer reloading tanks, and the 430 is just coming in. I just accept the hit from him in order to get rid of him. So once that guy anchoring that corner's down, we have much better ability to work on this T-10. The 103 makes a huge mistake right here, being unable to share. Both of us would have had a shot if he would have not done that. I eventually get that in there, wedge my way through. And the T-10 gets a HE shot at me, which only HE that only does a track. Auto aim the Suma, come in here. Another strength of a medium is the ability to move across short distance like that quickly and change the angle of local fights. That actually I just sneak one in on that weak spot there. Is really lucky, or maybe got into the trap. Take another HE shot. Get stunned right there. But we push him off the back. I'm going to head this way. I don't want to go up the way the UDES did, because guys down below maybe getting shots on us. So we'll come back up top. Now this thing has a good turret, as I've mentioned. So it does have the ability to come here and go hold down against things like this. Now we're talking about that heat shell that has the ridiculous penetration, the ridiculous bonus over the standard penetration. And it is a lot compared to what it normally has. So I should be able to sneak some into this poor 4502 Bravo's turret, which is virtually useless against it, minus the mantlet. Now we've got a T-10, all kinds of guys charging in. I'll just auto aim, one gets a shot. I get a shot, but I bounce, and that's unfortunate. And we'll come up here, the IS-4 is taking all kinds of damage. There's that depression I gotta kind of try to work with it. I gotta come up and over further than I want to. But he is shot and is so busy looking at everybody else I don't have to worry about it. And now I'm looking for shots on guys hanging down here. And I will take this ramp. If you don't know about that ramp, it's very useful for that kind of thing. Be careful about that jump. Lucky I didn't damage it. No, I did damage myself. 117. Now I'm going to come in this kind of flat pancake hover tank. Does well in places like this right here. I know this little saddle sits here, and with a flat little tank with a good turret, you can do some good work. I'm seeing the UDES, so I actually just push down in here, take a little bit of a chance that I might get a shot. There's probably guys camping back there, so I'll back out. The Bat Chat 12T does the same thing. I think he would have followed me up if I would have pushed down in there, but that would not be wise right now. I figure a lot of their guns are back here in the forest. There we go. Get a piece of the T-26E5. The IS-3 is now out in the open. Not sure why I can't see him. Could be a replay artifact. Yeah, a piece of ground or something right there. Another bounce. There we go. Finally get rid of that guy. And the E-105 is raging around. Looks like their Patton is way down on the corner. 1390 is turtled up down here. The Udez is down in the swamp down there. And I get spotted clearly. Up to 2600 damage and 1600 assist. Getting a lot of assist because I'm out in front now. A bunch of my friends are coming up, so it's pretty much time for me to make another move. No shot on the Sturb, so let's just push down and we'll just take on the Udez. I track him for some more assist. Down he goes. T-54 hanging out over there. He's making a runner. Get a little bit of him. Nice high roll at 380. Oh, I'm sorry, that's assist damage. I got nothing. I shot, but he got nothing. He disintegrated too fast, but brought me up to 2600 assist. Put a shot on him. That just plain old misses. All of a sudden, RNG is not my friend. So I'm just going to kind of head over this way, see if I can get a shot. There's a track. That'll give me some more assist. Not that I was trying to track. I really wanted to get the damage, but there you go. Up to 3400 assist. And now pushing into the Patton with some pretty good speed. The T-49 will certainly beat me. The Oho and the Marbrecker are already there, trundling in. Let's see if I can get some more damage out of this thing. So pretty good example, solid example here of taking your medium, your capable combat brawling medium, with enough speed up into the critical terrain, anchoring that terrain. Oh, that's right, the guy drowns himself. Fantastic. Thanks for that, dude. Up to the critical terrain, anchoring that terrain until the rest of your team comes up, and then just using it as a brawling medium, and later on pushing, getting some more assists, getting some track damage. It really is a capable all-around medium tank. Can pretty much do everything. All right, let's move on to the second example. All right, for the second example, we're going to be more of a brawler and a bit of a fire brigade here. We're going to come up here to the standard spot. Here's that depression. In the right spots, it's pretty good if you can just show your turret. But right here, this little divot allows me to work a bit, but unfortunately, I have to expose a little more of my hole than I want to. But about right here is a nice little spot. Get a little damage there. It is vulnerable to artillery. You can see the charioteers actually hugging to the right side. I can't use that side because I don't have the depression. See right there, I didn't quite have what I needed. Just waiting for the 5120 to make a push or to come out here and give me a shot. I'm just trying to show my turret. Until the Artie proves he's looking over here, I'm not going to worry about the Artie too much. Get a little 312 in there, a couple low rolls in a row. And I'm hoping he'll stay there to get one more shot, but he doesn't want to. Doesn't look like it. Now the Emil's thinking about going. Maybe I just get a shot into him. Switch over, and I bounce the 5120 shot, and I miss. I may have actually bounced off the Emil, I'm not sure. Another shot in the 5120. Now see how he's got high enough he can see my hole now? Probably shot straight down onto the top of the hole. And then I should get some... No, I'm not going to get any damage off of the Emil 1. Looks like it went into his turret. Good on him for keeping the turret pointed towards me. There's only about 3 of us here, right? We got the 49, M4 49, who actually has a fantastic game. He does a really nice job anchoring that corner. Myself and my TD Charioteer buddy with a Scorpion in the back. There's an IS-3, and all of a sudden the Conqueror shows up, and now I'm starting to think, well, we got trouble here. They got a lot of dudes, but we're pushing into their backfield, so that's very interesting. See, I've gone to heat. I'm able to push right through that 40-50's flat-plated turret armor. Not that time. Not sure if I hit the flat plate or if I actually got into the mantlet. But, what is it, 330 I believe on the pen. Sneak one in. Yeah, there we go. Sneak another one in. 330 on the pen. Just 120 or 110 more than the standard penetration of the round. We talked about already the 2 different guns. Both are viable. Not quite able. See, I just have to kind of wiggle around and figure out where I can get on this little place, this little spot here where I can get the best depression and get a shot. There's some damage from spotting. And I'm starting to notice down below me to the left where the IS-3A is a little bit of trouble. We're not really winning, right? It's 2-4. We're outnumbered over here. We have pushed through, but they've got a lot of guys defending. So right now we just got to kind of start whittling these guys down, keep them busy. Unfortunately, they're up top and they have shots on our guys who are pushing in. Would have been much nicer if the guys who had pushed in did not push to the back but had folded back. Now I didn't notice this mill show up to about right here, so I'm just going to go as hold down as I can. Try to get into his track, wiggle the armor a little bit. There, he gets stunned. Now he's got a lot of trouble with the stun, and we take him down. So definitely already helped me out right there. Bounced quite a few shots from the mill. He didn't have a good shot into my hole, it looks like, or he was shooting kind of into that upper plate that was angled and didn't have a good angle based on being a little bit below me. So I noticed they're messing around down the middle here, so I'm going to try to find this WZ-120 if I can. There he is. Gives me one free shot. He squares up. There we go. He misses. Just backing out, trying to get away from him. Looking for a track there, but I don't quite get it. I'm going to dodge down this way because that's the side of the rock that gives me cover. Now I'm just going to try to back. I see the Conway, but I see he's not coming, so I'm just going to do a little side scrape and just show it just a corner of his tank right there and take him down. That's one of the weaknesses, obviously, of a casemate, especially one trying to hide behind a rock. So we've cleaned up the push down below, and look at this. The M449 is still holding. Why they didn't just go after him and clear him out, I'll never know. But that's a good thing for us. He dies. I was going to go maybe for that top hatch. As I look at this now, the AMX 5120 has run away. That leaves only the LTTB up on the hill that I can tell based on where all the tanks are spotted. He is not very aware that he's alone and unafraid up here. So we'll just come up, get a shot on him. He does a pretty good job running away from me, and I get stuck up on the soap rocks, and I trying to get around him. Can't quite get there. Holy cow, this is killing me. There we go. And that's the end of that. 3,716, 1,484, 80 bounced, 543 assist. More of a brawling. The last game on Malnovka, I went to the critical terrain, fought there, a little bit of a brawl, and then was able to move out. This one I just kind of had to anchor and use some of this thing's mobility and fantastic armor layout, hover medium standard, to really frustrate some people. And 1,480 bounce, that's pretty darn good on a medium tank. On a medium, especially against some of the guns that I was doing it against. A little bit of a flex down to the bottom there just to take care of the push coming in behind us, and then back up onto the hill. Let's move on to the third example. So let's look a little bit at the flexibility. I showed you some of that on the last one, but it was only in the local area. On the first one, there was no real reason to flex around. It was just mostly a push, an entire push for the entire game. On this one, I'll be top tier here on steps going over to the east side to what I consider the critical terrain these days. I would have split it 50-50 or even said the west was more important, but I believe that the east is actually more important right now, while you have to keep an eye on the west. So it is a map that both sides do matter, but I think this is probably the more important side. But a lot of it has to do with where the enemy goes and where you go, right? You can't shoehorn everything into what's critical right off the bat and then get mad that the game isn't played that way or the match isn't played that way. So we see a 54 taking a few hits there. I've gone to this corner. I really don't have any help, right? See all those guys camping in the back? The T-10 is sort of loitering behind me, so there's no reason to push in. I'm just going to come around here. Also, that rock over there tends to have bad guys hiding behind it, and you come around for shots on things like the 110. Sometimes I get a shot on you. I'm sort of surprised I didn't get shot at. They may have been taking pot shots at the guys up top because I think they were spotted trying to shoot the T-54. But the 110 comes in. My T-10 comes in. I'm thinking, well, if the T-10 just goes around the corner, we'll go wipe out this 110. And I'm trying to see if I'm getting spotted, but I'm not sure if I am. Yep, there we go. But again, though, at that point, I'm thinking, well, that could have been a proxy off the 110. So I'm sure somebody's back there. But right now, I just don't have good SA on where. I see the leopard going out. There's the artillery, of course. 510 hit points taken away from me. Everyone is shooting at the PT, so I'm going to go. They've all taken shots. So we'll just come in on the 110. I'll tuck to the left here.
and I'm looking to turn around if I can. Unfortunately, I take a shot, and I should have kept turning. And quite, there we go. I did actually get the front armor to him, but he takes a chunk off me with his heat. And we get rid of him. So that cost me quite a bit. I think that cost me more than I wanted it to, but we did get this point. The problem is there's still quite a few tanks back here, and fighting our way out of this hole with 2 artillery shooting at us is going to be kind of difficult. So I wasn't overly happy with this, especially since the rest of my team did not follow up. Right, the Leopard and the T-10 came. The rest of them are still camping, camping in the back. I'm still pretty sure there's somebody behind that rock, but they haven't made themselves known yet. Then they make themselves known. And I say, okay, there he is. There's that guy. Love to get rid of him. Snipe. That's just RNG working for me right there. I'm able to snipe that top hatch. That is a weak spot on the 103, but I wouldn't say that I was assured a hit on that one. Not without some RNG intervention. And all of a sudden, now we found all kinds of guys. Try to aim in on this guy. Do not get the damage. Drives me a little bit crazy. Get some spotting on the Indian Panzer. Progetto's lost his mind. I really don't know what that move was all about. I'm glad that he came up to support, but that was a little bit ridiculous. So now I'm looking at what's going on down on the west, on the southwest side. Getting some more spotting damage. Got 2,000 damage kicked out. I'd really love to get rid of this guy. And he just gets away from me. And I switch out of the heat because I'm wasting heat. I'm looking at the armor of what's left, and I'm thinking, man, I shouldn't have been shooting all that heat at some of these guys. And now I'm starting to consider, wow, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tanks here, and there's 4 of us. Pretty soon they're going to figure that out. In addition, there's a T-54 and a T-10 coming up the middle. And all we have is a 257 Allurva. There goes our artillery, and we are in big trouble down the south. So it's just time to go back there. We need to try to clean that up, and then we'll deal with their team. Their team is not showing any proclivity for pushing. So if for a little while the T-10 and the UDES-16 can stay alive, and their team continues to be passive, I may have time to get back here. There has been a reaction. They did clean up the T-54. Looks like the T-10's probably dying next. But there's still a JT and a T-95, and those two are isolated without their mediums. So I just flex back this way. And that's one of the great things about this tank, is it can definitely do this kind of thing. Plenty of speed to do it. Cruise along at 56. 257 dies, not really a surprise. Thankfully, I saved a bit of my heat for these guys. It'd be nicer if I had about 6 or 7 rounds. 295, not as big a deal. Sniping hatches and shooting the side with heat's not too great, but it's what I've got. So we're going to come up here, and I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to actually go to the right here, hoping that as I count noses, it looks like there isn't anybody unaccounted for. Now, some of those lights are old lights, so they could be flexing back. But based on the way they were fighting, I'm really not suspecting. So I'm going to come here. I don't want to expose myself to the JT. I'm trying to get to his sprocket there, but he does a nice job of rocking back and forth and keep me from it. I back out. He decides to point at me. He takes another hit from the side, and he's got very few options. He's probably going to have to accept that I'm coming up. Unfortunately, I do not penetrate. And there's the artillery hitting me. I fix it just so I can reload as fast as possible. Put it into that upper superstructure. There's the JT. He's just sort of staring, and he gets tracked. Actually gets hit. Tracked, fixes it, gets hit again with a big hit, and I'm able to come around the corner and shoot him in the side of the superstructure. So now we've got 4 tanks out of position. We've defeated that push, but we're out of position to help those two, and I'm just hoping that they can hang out as long as possible. I really need to take the X factor out of it, though. I don't want to go straight across and take on their 3 tanks while being bombed by artillery. So while their artillery is probably busy shooting, there we go, we find that guy. While their artillery is probably busy shooting the T-10 and the UDES, we'll try to go clean these guys up. I am a one-shot to that thing. He did 500 to me earlier, so he conceivably could shotgun me. So we'll come up this way, check that back corner. Probably not, especially if he's trying to support his buddies. And I suspect when I come up and over, I'll find him. There we go. No SA on the GW Tiger P. Doesn't have any real clue that he's seen. Probably till about right here. He says, "Oh, what happened?" And boom. So he got his shot off. He killed the Udez, and then he dies. They do a nice job. They take down one of them, so there's two of them still down there fighting. Very surprised, actually, at the T-10 as he lasted even this long. It's pretty amazing. Finally goes down, and we've got two. I decide not to go across the cap circle. I don't want to let them know that there's anyone there, although somebody behind me does. So I guess so much for that plan. They could probably guess this is the direction we're coming from. I was going to go right and sandwich them, but then I say, you know what, we need to put all our hit points in one spot. That was very useful. That Pantera is now a one-shot. So I'm just going to come around and take him down. Otherwise, he was going to get at least one shot off. Now the 4400 takes a shot, and he's a one-shot, and we'll take him down. 6 kills, 3,798, 1,361, and I basically went around this entire map, right? I didn't quite get to here on the push before, but it was close. I was just about where the Udez was, right there. Flexed all the way back using the tank's speed. Good medium speed, good capability. Some tactical flanks against things like T-95s, and then all the way back around through the Arty and back down here. And kudos to the Udez and the T-10, who lasted as long as they did against that many tanks, and it, frankly, kicked their rears as well, since only 3 of them survived. All right, that's it. Let's wrap this thing up for the T-54 review. Well, all right, that is it for my review of one of the oldest tanks in the game, the T-54 Russian Tier 9 medium tank. Still viable, still one of the better Tier 9s out there. Is something of a jack of all trades. Interesting. Can basically do everything, as I showed you in the replays there. Just play it a bit conservatively, especially initially, because if it does get caught out, it can get shredded pretty easily. But late game, based on its mobility, its stealthiness, its all-round capability, if you've got some hit points late game, this thing can be a real asset to carrying games and winning them towards the end. So thanks for tuning into this review, guys. I appreciate it. If you've got any other requests for a review of older tanks, I'd be happy to hear them, and we'll see if I can get those things knocked out. That is all I've got. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you.